Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Saturday afternoon discussion, reading and discussion of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras as presented to us by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood. Their translation or interpretation and commentary is published as How to Know God, which lets you know very clearly how much a workbook Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are, because Swami Prabhavananda did not impose the idea of how to know God. It is resident in Patanjali's attitude and in the sutras themselves. So, because I don't keep track with a book, I don't know where we left off last week.
We're on 47.
We're on Sutra 47. I have Glenn Morris here with me. We have Sutra 47 of Chapter 2. That's where we'll begin, apparently. And now we're discussing the niyamas at this point, the observances that lead to a higher state of awareness, ultimately a higher state of consciousness, as in concentration and meditation. So before we begin, anything at all that is left over from our previous readings and discussions of this book, or anything else having to do with Raja Yoga. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All right. Jeff, as pleases yourself, begin where you think is auspicious.
Okay, well, we're at 47, like Glenn said, but I thought I would quickly review 46 because it is the precursor to our current sloka. So 46 was posture, or asana, is to be seated in a position which is firm but relaxed.
So we've gone beyond the niyamas, and we're now in the other four of the limbs of Patanjali's yoga that he calls the 6 limbs of self-effort. So we're on the third of these 6 limbs.
And number 47, posture becomes firm and relaxed through control of the natural tendencies of the body and through meditation on the infinite. And I'll read 47 one more time. Posture becomes firm and relaxed through control of the natural tendencies of the body and through meditation on the infinite.
In other words, to turn your attention away from the finite and practice meditation on the infinite. Now we'll find out what is meant by this, of course, as the Swami explains.
A good natural posture is very rare. Most people hold themselves badly and are subject to all sorts of physical tensions. Asana must therefore be perfected by careful training. The aim is to achieve an effortless alertness in which the body is perfectly steady and yet perfectly relaxed. Since a maladjusted body only expresses a tense and restless state of mind, we are told to calm our minds by meditating on what is infinite. Our minds are incapable of imagining the infinite Brahman, but instead we can think of the limitless expanse of the sky. And that concludes the commentary.
The limitless expanse of the sky, or if you've ever lived next to the ocean, the limitless expanse of the ocean, the ocean of consciousness. Becomes the term ocean of consciousness becomes a reality for you if you've ever lived by the ocean, as I did for several years in Seal Beach, California. And you really do, you really can just let your mind roam out over that. That's still a visualization that's easy for me because I did live there. But this imagination of the sky, of course, we can all do that. A sky uninterrupted by sun, moon, or stars. Simply the limitless sky. Any comments or questions about this?
Yes, brother, I have one.
Yes, dear.
The sutra talks about posture becomes firm and relaxed through control of the natural tendencies of the body, and also through meditation on the infinite. And I'm sure we all understand that the purpose of asana is to give us a relaxed body so that we can meditate. So posture improves meditation, and meditation improves the posture. So
Well,
it's a nice perpetual loop going on there.
yes, and as a matter of fact, all of these limbs of yoga are involved in meditation. If you don't practice the restraints and the yamas, your mind will be continually unsettled, and you will not be able to become easy at asana. It simply isn't possible if your mind is constantly agitated with thoughts of I, me, mine. The observances, as we read through the sutras having to do with them, help us focus our attention away from the external and to the internal, and thereby come to understand what is meant by meditation on the infinite. When we meditate on the there are aspects of meditation that object-related meditation that we meditate on the finite, but to really be released from the tensions of mental agitation, which of course is the whole purpose of Patanjali's yoga, is to be released from all forms of mental modification. Then we need to learn something about the infinite. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Jeff. All right, please read on.
Sutra 48. Thereafter, one is no longer troubled.
Jeff, somehow or another, we've lost you a little bit. You seem to be distant from the microphone or something.
I'm not very distant, but maybe I'm mumbling.
No, that's it. It's suddenly the volume decreased.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hear me now?
Well, I can hear you, and I just upped my volume, so I'm hearing you fine.
Okay, everything looks normal at my end, but I'll speak up. Sutra 48. Thereafter, one is no longer troubled by the dualities of sense experience. One more time. Thereafter, one is no longer troubled by the dualities of sense experience. And the commentary. That is to say, by what the Gita calls the pairs of opposites, the apparent dualities of the phenomenal world, such as heat and cold, pleasure and pain, good and evil, etc. Such complete mastery of the body does not, of course, come through posture alone. It arises from a state of absorption in the consciousness of God. Patanjali goes on to describe the further practices which are necessary in order to reach this state. And that concludes the commentary.
Okay, so read the sutra again.
Thereafter, one is no longer troubled by the dualities of sense experience.
So what he's saying is, once you've turned your attention away from the finite and focused it repeatedly and very deliberately on the infinite, you'll find slowly and slowly that the sense experiences simply, while you're in that state, when you're in that meditative state, they simply don't occur to you. It isn't as if your body, which has a pinched nerve, doesn't have a pinched nerve anymore. It does, but you're not paying any attention to it. And the attention is directed elsewhere. And it's very free, and it allows you to practice now the other three limbs of Patanjali's yoga that he terms these limbs that are still a matter of self-effort. Any other comments or questions or concerns? Okay, Jeff, please read on.
All right, sir. The next two slokas are grouped together, and then that is followed by a very long commentary. So I will just pause between the paragraphs so that anybody can jump in. Sutra 49. After mastering posture, one must practice control of the prana through pranayama by stopping the motions of inhalation and exhalation. Repeating 49. After mastering posture, one must practice control of the prana, which is pranayama, by stopping the motions of inhalation and exhalation. And number 50. The breath may be stopped externally or internally, or checked in mid-motion and regulated according to place, time, and a fixed number of moments, so that the stoppage is neither protracted or brief. Repeating Sutra 50. The breath may be stopped externally or internally, or checked in mid-motion and regulated according to place, time, and a fixed number of moments, so that the stoppage is neither protracted or brief. And the commentary, as we have seen in chapter 1, prana means the vital energy by which we live. Because this energy is renewed by breathing, prana may sometimes be translated as breath. But the word has a much broader reference, for all the powers of the body and all the functions of the senses and the mind are regarded as expressions of the force of prana. To quote the Prasna Upanishad, then Bhargava approached the teacher and asked, "Holy Sir, how many several powers hold together this body? Which of them are most manifest in it, and which is the greatest?" "The powers," replied the sage, are ether, air, fire, water, and earth, these being the 5 elements which compose the body. And besides these, speech, mind, eye, ear, and the rest of the sense organs. Once these powers made the boastful assertion, "We hold the body together and support it," whereupon prana, the primal energy supreme over all of them, said to them, "Do not deceive yourselves. It is I alone, dividing myself fivefold, who hold together this body and support it." But they would not believe him. Prana, to justify himself, made as if he intended to leave the body. But as he arose and appeared to be going, all the rest realized that if he went, they also would have to depart with him. And as Prana again seated himself, the rest found their respective places. As bees go out when their queen goes out, and return when she returns, so it was with speech, mind, vision, hearing, and the rest. Convinced of their error, the powers now praised Prana, saying, "As fire, Prana burns. As the sun, he shines. As cloud, he rains. As Indra, he rules the gods. As wind, he blows. As the moon, he nourishes all. He is that which is visible and also that which is invisible. He is immortal life." And that concludes that lengthy quote from the Upanishad. According to the physiology of Raja Yoga, a huge reserve of spiritual energy is situated at the base of the spine. This reserve of energy is known as the Kundalini, that which is coiled up. Hence, it is sometimes referred to as the serpent power. When the Kundalini is aroused, it is said to travel up the spine through 6 centers of consciousness, reaching the 7th, the center of the brain. As it reaches the higher centers, it produces various degrees of enlightenment. The process is best explained in the words of Ramakrishna. The scriptures speak of 7 centers of consciousness. The mind may dwell in one or the other of the centers. When the mind is attached to worldliness, it dwells in the 3 lower centers, at the navel, the organ of reproduction, and the organ of evacuation. The mind then has no higher spiritual ambitions or visions. It is immersed in the cravings of lust and greed. The 4th center is at the heart. When the mind learns to dwell there, man experiences his first spiritual awakening. Then he has the vision of light all around. Seeing this light, he becomes filled with wonder and says, "Ah, how blissful!" His mind does not then run to the lower centers. The 5th center is at the throat. He whose mind has reached this center is freed from ignorance and delusion. He does not enjoy hearing or talking of anything but God. The 6th center is at the forehead. When the mind reaches this center, there is the direct vision of God day and night. Even then, there is a little trace of ego left in the aspirant. It is like a light in a lantern. One feels as if one could touch the light, but cannot because of the obstructing pane of glass. The 7th center is at the top of the head. When the mind reaches it, samadhi is attained. One becomes a knower of Brahman, united with Brahman. And that concludes the quotation from Sri Ramakrishna.
Good.
The study of Raja Yoga should be very helpful to those whose minds have been warped by a conventional Puritan upbringing. The danger of Puritanism is that it inclines us to regard certain functions and powers of the body as evil and other functions and powers as good, without seeing any relation between the 2 groups. Raja Yoga reminds us that the mind-body has only one life force. This force expresses itself in different ways at different levels of consciousness. It may impel a person to paint a picture, run a race, have sexual intercourse, or say his prayers. but it is always the same force no matter where it takes you. Just as in a department store, the same elevator takes you to the women's hats, the sports department, the furniture, and the restaurant on the roof. Some people who have read and misunderstood Freud are apt to say sneeringly, religion is nothing but repressed sex. And this remark is supposed to shock us into giving up religion in disgust. But it would not have shocked Patanjali in the least, though he might have laughed at its stupidity. Sex, he would have retorted, is nothing but potential religion. Use the same energy for a higher purpose, and you will obtain enlightenment. According to Raja Yoga, the spinal column contains two nerve currents, the Ida on the left and Pingala on the right.
Pingala.
Pingala? I'm sorry, okay.
It's okay, no reason to be sorry you didn't know. Pingala.
Oh, I hear and forget. I'm still learning Sanskrit, and I will for the rest of my life. So the Ida on the left and the Pingala on the right, and a central passage which is called the
Sushumna.
Sushumna. Say, I would have guessed correctly on that one. When the Kundalini is aroused, it passes up the Sushumna, which in normal unspiritual persons remains closed. In speaking of the centers of the navel, heart, throat, etc., Ramakrishna is using physical terms to give the approximate positions of the centers, which are actually situated within the Sushumna itself. These centers are also called lotuses in yogic literature because they are said to appear in the form of a lotus to those whose spiritual vision enables them to see them. And he refers to chapter 1, sloka 36. Vivekananda suggests that we may think of them as corresponding to the various plexuses of Western physiology. As we have seen, yoga physiology makes no absolute distinction between gross and subtle matter. It is all a question of degree. When, says Vivekananda, by the power of long internal meditation, the vast mass of energy stored up travels along the Sushumna and strikes the centers, the reaction is tremendous, immediately superior to the reaction of dream or imagination, immensely more intense than the reaction of sense perception. Whenever there was any manifestation of what is ordinarily called supernatural power or wisdom, there is a little current of Kundalini must have found its way into the Sushumna. Only in the vast majority of such cases, people have ignorantly stumbled on some practice which set a minute portion of the coiled up, I'll start that sentence again. Only in the vast majority of such cases, people had ignorantly stumbled on some practice which set free a minute portion of the coiled up Kundalini. All worship, consciously or unconsciously, leads to this end. The man who thinks that he is receiving response to his prayers does not know that the fulfillment comes from his own nature, that he has succeeded by the mental attitude of prayer in waking up a bit of this infinite power which is coiled up within himself. What thus man ignorantly worships under various names through fear and tribulation, the yogi declares to the world to be the real power coiled up in every being, the mother of eternal happiness, if we but know how to approach her. And yoga is the science of religion, the rationale of all worship, all prayers, forms, ceremonies, and miracles. And that concludes the quote from Swamiji.
Okay. People often ask the question, well, why can't I experience this uprush of the Kundalini now and experience enlightenment now? And the answer is it would blow your circuits entirely. The power is of the Kundalini is the power. It is the power of the universe. This is why he just refers to it as the mother. So we learn to open the spiritual, the channel for the spiritual current by opening these various centers. We don't have to focus on them directly. We may if we wish, but if we simply do what we're told by those people who tell us what to do, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Vivekananda, and the gurus, then what will happen is these centers automatically begin to open, and the current slowly and slowly arises through those centers to the heart, to the throat, to the what we think of as the eyebrows. It's actually a center within the brain itself, but we feel it or sense it in between our eyebrows, in between our eyes, in our eyebrows. And then the 10,000 petaled lotus of the Muladhara. No, I'm sorry. The top center, which the name escapes me right now.
Sahasrara.
Say it again.
Sahasrara.
That doesn't sound like the pronunciation I know.
No?
Sahasrara.
Sahasrara. Thank you, Sahasrara. Thank you, Balakrishna. When it reaches there, then you go into a very profound kind of samadhi. There are various names for it. Savikalpa is the convenient word, but Sri Ramakrishna said there's thousands of kinds of samadhi. So, and because we're unique, who knows exactly what the nature of that samadhi would be for each of us and what we would experience there. But it is the effort to purify ourselves, which starts with the yamas, and then the niyamas, and then asana, learning how to sit calmly, and then this divorcing ourselves from the senses, pratyahara. I forgot pranayama. And pranayama is something that we don't need to focus on directly. It happens spontaneously as we turn our attention within and focus our attention on some aspect of spirit that is the I hate to say subject because it's not really a subject, but the focus of our attention during contemplation, concentration, and meditation. And so then naturally the breathing slows, the thoughts, which are very closely associated with breathing, slow, and ultimately they stop briefly. Then we become aware, oh, they've stopped. But then by then we're thinking again and breathing again. Ultimately, this business of the mental modifications or thinking, which is more than we ordinarily imagine when we think of the word thinking, stops altogether. And that's when we go, as Vivekananda says, your individual universe disappears. So any comments or questions about what has been read?
Yes, I've noticed something
that with these centers, if they're used, if you use them, you become more aware of their existence.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to use them for your advancement or benefit. And so I do use them.
Please give us an example of the use of them.
Okay. During my meditation, one thing that I do is I offer everything to God. And I use the fifth center to eject from my physical body all of these physical attributes or things that I have, and I use that fifth center to eject them from my body to offer them to God. And that's one example of how the offering is made. But then the part that is rarely spoken of is how to receive back from God that which he intends or is desirous of us having. I receive that through asna.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of how the spiritual energies are received back into the body and soul. And because before any of this happens, I recognize that the prana is not received during exhalation or inhalation, but it is received not from external, but from internal during that brief period between inhalation and exhalation.
Yes, that's what stops the thoughts, is the pure prana actually is what slows and finally stops the thoughts. You're very right in all of that, Robert. And that's a lovely example of the use of the fifth chakra, which, as you doubtless know, is the center associated with speech. So when you're offering, you're mentally creating this communication, this speech, and you're emptying yourself of that which would otherwise be an impediment. And so you said ejecting, that's a strong word. That's good. You can be a little more gentle about it and simply lay it at the feet of that is a very, very apt use of the fifth chakra, which my practice is parallel to that. It's a verbalization of intention and determination to offer everything of the day and then of the night to the divine presence.
And incidentally, that is not something that I've read any place. It came to me through my meditation.
Yes. As a gift, like you say.
Yes.
The open hand, once you've emptied your hand of what you're holding, then it can receive. And what we don't know is that our second and third chakras, the ones that create all this attachment and aversion and desire and so on and so forth, they're constantly at work, whether we think about them or not. So we're using those chakras just as our ordinary human selves. And this is why Patanjali says, and the Swami imagines what Patanjali would say if confronted by this misunderstanding of Freud. He said he'd just say that energy that you're getting involved with at the second chakra and third chakra through your love relationships and sexual relationships and so on, it's the same energy that is. It is only that energy. So lift it up, lift it up, bring it to your heart, bring it to your throat, bring it higher yet, and it will transform you.
Maybe I should have included, I didn't include that part of it, but when I do receive it through asana, after it's received, it's brought down to the throat chakra.
Mm-hmm.
It's brought down to the heart chakra.
Mm-hmm.
It's brought down to the navel chakra,
Yeah.
and allowed to just flow through the lower chakras.
Yes.
With gravity.
And then touch the Kundalini, which then responds.
And then the receiving of it, I receive it through that fifth chakra, and I bring it up through those of the chakras up here, and it expands from there.
Now, do any of you need to do what it is that Robert suggested, or I said there's a parallel in practice here? No, you just be with yourself. Let your true desire for whatever it is you desire, and because you're here on this Saturday afternoon, one can imagine that this has a component of spiritual aspiration. Just let that direct you, and you will come up. Robert, as Robert said, this was a gift to him. When you focus on what you want, if you're open-handed rather than being constantly concerned with I, me, mine, but instead have the open hand of thou, thee, thine, and then you will receive. You will receive exactly what is appropriate for you. Now, for those of you who have a guru who's given you instructions, that is foundational. So we never ignore that. But that doesn't mean that you won't receive further gifts beyond those instructions out of the treasure box of the great ones who come and left these treasures behind. So anything else before I ask Jeff to reread the entirety of what we just read for 40, whatever that was, 47 and 48 or 48 and 49, something like that. I've forgotten what the numbers are now, but
Number 49 and 50.
49 and 50, all right. But before that, any other comments from anyone or any concerns that any of this raises or any question you have that wants clarification?
Brother, am I audible?
Yes, Rajiv.
I feel a lot of this is pesticides.
Rajiv, you're breaking up. So you're audible, but you're breaking up. So could you get closer to whatever it is you're speaking through, and also see if you can perhaps go into another room where there's better reception.
Is it better now?
Much better, much.
So I feel a lot of this is like, mentioned in different ways, but I think one way everybody does experience prana, like if, let's say you're driving and suddenly, somebody annoys you and you feel a sudden urge, and that urge of energy where you want to respond to something. So I mean, most of the times, like anything that gives us like goosebumps or sudden urge of energy, I mean, that is prana. And
yes.
One way is like, especially when I go to like ISKCON, like the Hare Krishna people and they dance.
Mhm.
I mean, you can literally feel the prana. They are actually doing pranayama. And I feel like everybody does. Right now, we are doing pranayama in a way.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Now, the thing of it is, there is the grossest aspect of ourselves, which is called the food body, the Annamaya kosha. The next layer in, which powers both the food body and everything else within it until you get to the core of your being, is powered by prana. So it's the pranamaya kosha. And it has its own priorities based on all of your many, many mental impressions over eons. So this is why we need to learn to train it. We need to learn to readjust its priorities, because its priorities tend to be outward directed through the senses or to the mind, and all kinds of gymnastics through energy being directed to the mind. So we have these two senses in the mind in the senses, senses in the mind, back and forth, back and forth. And the prana, as you said, Rajiv, we all have these other experiences of it, but it will remain directed, as I've said, unless we retrain it to do otherwise. Any other comments or questions about this or any other aspect of this?
I have one, brother. Oh, go ahead, Haima.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Brother Shankar, this is Naima.
Yes,
I just want to add something what Robert said and you said. It improves, pranayama improves calmness and concentration, and it leads to even better meditation. For me, personally experiences, it led me into better meditation and more focus, more concentration, and then ego keeps dropping. When you practice pranayama, that leads to the dropping of ego slowly, and all these things happen automatically. To me personally, it happened.
Why does it happen automatically? Because we've turned our attention from our habitual participation in time, space, and causation to a deeper realm, still within time, space, and causation, but the realm that is produced for us by the Atman.
That's right.
The realm, all of this is, in a sense, the actions of the Atman, but through the gunas and all that business. So when we go deeper inside, the Atman's intentions, and it has intentions, Krishna is very clear about that, become apparent to us. One of them, one of the attributes, or you can say intentions of Atman, is this calmness that you talk about. And of course, because you've turned away from the mind and the senses, the feeling of I, me, mine, and the ego is lessened. You say drops. That's fine. But yes, it is indeed automatic if we do these things that are being suggested by Patanjali. This is why he says, when we replace, and this is an action verb, when we replace the lower samskaras, the lower mental impressions of our eons long participation of time, space, and causation, when we replace those lower samskaras with higher samskaras, that which we learn from our own internal investigation, and also from the great teachers who give us these guide words and guide concepts and actions, then automatically things begin to change for us. So yes, indeed, Haima. It is automatic, and it does lead to calmness and a reduction in the sense of ego. Thank you, Haima. And Jeff,
Sure, brother. And this must be learned from a good teacher. The pranayama practice is not regular breathing. It's regular breathing where automatically all of us are doing. But the pranayama is a slow breathing technique that adds to our practices. It has to be learned from a real good teacher
yes,
who knows really well.
otherwise it's dangerous.
Otherwise, it's dangerous. Yes,
It can harm your
definitely.
nervous system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jeff.
Yes, I am really taken by this passage by Swami Vivekananda because it's pretty common, especially I think those of us in the West, if we pray or meditate, we think that we are trying to make contact with something out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so describing this in terms of the Kundalini and the chakras, it's eye-opening to me to consider the fact that we are really the microcosm of the macrocosm of the oneness that non-duality really is. And that if we're praying or meditating, the results are coming from within ourselves. That, to me, is transformational.
Yes, and if you want to know more about this, read the preface and introduction to Swami Vivekananda's interpretation and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which was published under the title Raja Yoga in 1896 and became a bestseller all over the English-speaking world. And it was the only book he ever wrote. None of the other books that are published under his name did he write. They were all collections of his talks and letters and so on. So he wrote Raja Yoga, and he explains in some detail, I believe it's in the preface, about what it is that we're contacting when we contact this power within, and that it is indeed that power that answers prayer and transforms us, which is exactly the same thing that Krishna says in different terms in a different frame of reference in the Gita when in answering a question of Arjuna's. So this is all this is this is the great mystery, of course. There is, in fact, no out there. The only thing that exists out there, as Don Lincoln, the head of Fermilab, one of the great quantum physicists of the day, as he says, there's nothing out there but vibration. You are making all of this instant by instant by instant. You are translating that vibration into the time, space, and causation, object-related universe we apparently inhabit. And each of us has our own universe and is taking the infinite possibilities of the vibration that exists outside us. And due to our conditioning and our training and our way of being, we're turning it into the reality that we have. And as we change our reality, that is by spiritual practice or any other practice, someone who becomes a great tennis player or a great chess player or anyone else, their reality deeply changes. But ours changes, as Haima pointed out, automatically as we direct our attention within. At first, however clumsily, and then over time with greater and greater determination, persistence, and perfection, our reality changes and changes and changes. And it keeps on changing. Why? Because we are infinite and we are participants in, we are direct results of that infinite, participating in that infinite. Anything else from anyone?
I have a question.
Yes, Jack.
Brother, you and Jaime were talking about pranayama and learning it from a teacher. Is that something that is taught in Ramakrishna Vedanta? In other words, are there different levels of initiation,
No.
or is it more informal between students?
The straight answer to your question is no. And as a matter of fact, the Ramakrishna Order Swamis discourage you from going to a teacher and learning pranayama. It isn't that what Jaime said isn't true. It's just that they say it's an unnecessary use of your time. Do what you're told by Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Vivekananda, and the eternal teacher as it appears to you as your guru. In your case, Swami Ishtananda. Just do what they say, and pranayama will happen automatically. This is what they say. This can offer a testament to that. I've never practiced pranayama, even the most simple exercises of pranayama, and yet have enjoyed the benefits of them, benefits of pranayama, even to the extent that it was, no, well, that I'm not going to boast. It is a fact that if you do what you're told by the great teachers, then if you do any kind of prayer without ceasing, whether it be Christian or any other form, which is what you begin to do when you follow the directions of the eternal teacher. Whether you know it or not, your mind becomes transformed and you are constantly rehearsing the truths. And you at first you stumble across it from time to time in your waking awareness. Then later you sense that it's constantly going on. So pranayama as a deliberate practice is not necessary as far as the Ramakrishna Order Swamis are concerned. So, and you can ask Swami Ishtananda about that directly. I recommend you do. Anything else from anyone?
Very well.
All right, we have about 7 minutes left. If I'm reading my clock correctly, I think that's time for you to time enough for you to reread what you read before. So that's where we'll start again next week.
Okay, well, brother. So we're starting. I'm confused. Am I going to start rereading now?
Read 49 and 50 and the commentary.
Okay. Just to let you know, we do have about 2 more pages of commentary to go that we haven't read yet.
Oh my! I thought we finished with
so
the.
Maybe we can do
go
that.
Go ahead and finish the commentary, and then we'll start next week with. We want 2 more pages. I don't know whether we'll get it all finished or not. Stick around if you'd like. Those of you who are with us, stick around and listen to the final 2 pages. And then this is where we'll start again next week, because this is so provocative and pregnant.
The object of pranayama is to rouse the kundalini and thereby control the prana, the vital energy. Prana, as has been said, manifests itself primarily in the function of breathing. Therefore, control of the prana may be obtained by the practice of breathing exercises. The whole technique of pranayama is centered in the stopping of the breath. If the breath is checked after an exhalation, when the lungs have been emptied of air, the stoppage is said to be external. If the breath is checked after an inhalation, this is an internal stoppage. By place is meant the particular part of the body at which the breath is checked, since an inhalation or exhalation need not necessarily be total. Then again, the breath may be held for a certain period of time. These are highly technical matters which have little place in this commentary, since we are chiefly concerned with Patanjali's spiritual and philosophical teaching. What must be emphasized is this: no one should practice the advanced exercises of pranayama without the constant supervision of an experienced teacher, and no one should practice them under any circumstances unless he is leading an absolutely chaste life, devoted entirely to the search for God. Otherwise, they may easily lead to mental disturbances of the most dangerous kind. Those who encourage others to adopt such practices out of curiosity or vanity can only be described as criminals. The tremendous power of the Kundalini is not something to be lightly played with and abused.
The most dangerous kind, I'm going to interrupt. The most dangerous kind, what he's talking about is megalomania, extreme narcissism. You get a totally inflated egoic sense of yourself through these practices if you practice them without supervision. And you can even damage your nervous system physically, give yourself a stroke or something of the kind. So please heed what the Swami is saying. And that's what he meant by mental disturbances of the most dangerous kind. So please read on, Jeff.
There is, however, a harmless breathing exercise which may be used to calm the mind and prepare it for concentration. Close the right nostril with the thumb of the right hand and breathe in deeply through the left nostril. Feel as you do so that you are inhaling the pure and sacred prana in the life breath and sending a current down the Ida nerve to the Kundalini, situated within its basic triangular lotus at the bottom of the spine. Hold the breath for a moment, repeating the sacred syllable Om. Then, as you release the right nostril, close the left nostril with the forefinger. Exhale through the right nostril, feeling as you do so that you are expelling all impurities from the body. Then, still keeping the left nostril closed, inhale through the right nostril, sending the current down the Pingala nerve and repeating the process in reverse. In other words, only one nostril is kept open at a time, and the change is always just before exhalation. This exercise may be continued for several minutes until one begins to feel its calming effects. It cannot possibly do any injury, since it does not involve holding the breath excessively or overstimulating the body with too much oxygen. And that concludes the entire commentary.
Very good. All right. Well, bang on. It's 59. 12:59. Any comment from anyone else about their own experience or wisdom? Any concern that this raises, or any question of clarification? All right, dears. We'll do this all over again to start next week. We'll read 49 and 50 and all this commentary. and see if there's anything else. If there's nothing else needed from anyone, well, then we'll just pass on. But this is very deep stuff.
Brother Shankara, can you
Yes,
hear?
dear.
Yeah, I was just, one of the things that Jeff read was that in order to practice all those in-depth pranayama, it's a whole lifestyle. I mean, we cannot, I guess, continue this other modern kind of lifestyle and then hope to practice the more complicated pranayamas. The simple ones are much more easier, and they help rather than uh, waste the time trying to learn all those excessive breath holding, because ultimately it is chemistry and physics, and no wonder that there will be negative consequences if we do it.
If you try to do it, even if you do it under the guidance of an experienced teacher, your ordinary life will change because, and so this is why the Swami says, unless you're practicing, unless you're living a life that permits the changes that are going to take place as you're practicing this pranayama, then you must not do it because there are just too many dangers. So the fact is, you don't need to do anything other than what your teacher told you to do. If you want to do this simple exercise that he just mentioned, right nostril, left nostril, so on, fine. As was said earlier, I've never done any of this, and yet the pranayama manifested. So I'll just leave it at that. If anyone wants to talk to me about it personally, I'll be glad to.
Brother,
And
some people say that, like, as part of their spiritual practice, like, they don't
Rajiv, you cut out. It
like
looks like you're
advanced, so starts happening automatically. If it needs to happen, something like that.
Well, dear Rajiv, just follow your guru's instructions. You don't need to be speculating about these things. I mean, the mind wants to speculate about all kinds of things. If you just follow your guru's instructions, everything will be fine, and whatever needs to manifest to lead you to liberation will indeed manifest.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
yes, I, like you said, practicing whatever the guru has taught with any amount of sincerity that one can muster, and more sincere one gets, uh, things automatically happen.
Yes.
The application of the the theoretical knowledge into daily life happens like so almost miraculously. Suddenly you start connecting the pieces.
Yes. What connects the pieces? It is the Atman that is connecting the pieces for you. It is the fact that it is not the mind. It manifests as something, and the mind will gladly take credit for it, but it is not the mind. If the mind knew how to do this before, it would have done it. So you are absolutely right, Swayam. You just do what your teacher tells you to do. By the way, speaking of teachers, I just got notification yesterday that Swami Sarvadevananda will be here in mid-May. That's his intention. The exact dates have yet to be confirmed. He's given me some dates, but said not to mention them till he's talked to the people in Pittsburgh, where he's coming from, and the people in Austin, where he'll be going as he leaves here. So, but in mid-May. So if you have any desire to see the Swami, Wait until you hear from me further. But if you have any desire to take initiation, or you just want a private interview with him and so on, all that will be possible. He will have time to do both. He'll give us a talk about mantra and initiation and diksha and all that, and then he'll do the initiations, and then he'll have time for private interviews. So Swami Sarvadevananda, mid-May. Just keep your eye on the newsletter and on the website, but I strongly suggest anyone who's not already signed up to receive the newsletter, do that. Then you get all these things automatically each week. You get the newsletter Thursday or Friday, and you'll know everything you need to know if indeed you take time to read it. So any final thoughts or concerns or questions from anyone? All right, dears. So good to have been with you all. This is one of the highlights of the week. Each of the classes and so on is a real highlight. So, oh dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, "Come to me, come to me. I will tell you how to break this chain that binds you down to ignorance, suffering, and death." A flower at your feet for each one who takes that path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Peace, 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 and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. The beloved Master make it so. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Hari Om Tat Sat. So, until tomorrow morning, when the talk will be an American Upanishad, Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. Just a little advertisement. Swami Vivekananda said that Walt Whitman was the American sannyasin. And we'll talk about why the Swami said that, and we'll discuss the parts of Song of Myself that prove and underline the truth of and explain the truth of what Swami Vivekananda said. An American Upanishad, Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. Tomorrow morning at 11. For those of you who choose, it'll be good to see you then. Until then, sayonara, my loved ones.